Three things happen when people use improvised chemical defense. Someone gets hurt, someone gets arrested, someone gets lucky. Fear is reshaping everyday life across Britain. Women, girls, and night shift workers took aerosols, sprays, even jars of cream into handbags and coat pockets. They're not hunting trouble. They're hunting a sense of safety, a feeling that the next dark street or empty platform won't leave them powerless. Fear, when it lasts long enough, stops being a feeling. It becomes a routine. Knife offences have climbed to nearly 49,000 a year in England and Wales, the highest level since records began. Each number hides a story. A phone snatched, a fight on a bus, a stranger who didn't stop in time. Police numbers have thinned, stations have closed, response times stretch further every month, and somewhere between the cuts and the headlines, trust in protection has thinned too. So people do what people always do when institutions feel far away: they adapt. Social media fills the gap where reassurance used to live. On TikTok and Instagram, clips rack up millions of views. Runners comparing safety kits, students showing how to grip keys between their fingers, commuters swapping brand names of sprays that sting but stay legal. Each viral post is a flare, a sign of the same quiet panic, that someone might need help before help can arrive. Fear has become a social language, and it's teaching chemistry. Here's where the line is drawn. Under the Firearms Act, 1968, Section 5, anything designed or adapted to discharge a noxious liquid, gas, or other substance is a prohibited firearm. That includes pepper spray, even the little pink canisters sold online as self-defense keychains. The offense doesn't depend on using it, just possessing it is enough. Ignorance doesn't help. Good intentions don't count. You can order it online from abroad, you can tell the officer it's for protection, and still you'll be charged. Because in Britain, deterrence through pain sits on the same shelf as firearms. The logic is consistent. If it can disable, it can also be abused. But to many citizens, that logic now feels detached from lived reality. The result? A population looking for loopholes. Since pepper spray is forbidden, people improvise. Sports rubs like Deep Heat or Tiger Balm. Deodorant sprays, hairspray, nail varnish remover. Even perfume bottles repurposed with harsher mixtures. Deep Heat contains methyl salicylate, a wintergreen smelling chemical meant to warm sore muscles. In the eyes or lungs, it can blister skin, inflame airways, or in large doses cause respiratory collapse. Government toxicology reports classify it as harmful through inhalation and potentially fatal if misused. Menthol, another ingredient, cools the skin by triggering nerve endings. In concentrated aerosol form, that same effect becomes pain or panic. Then there's deodorant. Most use butane or propane propellants, volatile gases under pressure. They can burn, explode, or ignite with a single spark. In videos tagged legal pepper spray hack, influencers wave these cans like badges of empowerment. But the science doesn't bend for hashtags. What's inside those cans was never meant for defense. Each brand is different, each reaction unpredictable. Online, these products are marketed as loopholes, non-lethal, household, safe. In reality, they're roulette cans, trading certainty for the illusion of control. True pepper spray, oleoresin capsicum, or OC, is made from capsaicinoids extracted from chilies 1,000 times hotter than a jalapeno. When sprayed, those microscopic oils latch onto mucous membranes, eyes, nose, mouth, lungs. The body reacts instantly, eyes slam shut. Breathing becomes a struggle. Skin feels on fire. Within seconds, an attacker can't see or orient. That's why police use it as a short-term, non-lethal control tool. But even in training, officers undergo strict medical screening. They're exposed in controlled conditions, with medics nearby and decontamination on standby. Outside those walls, there's no control. Pepper spray can trigger asthma attacks, cardiac distress, or panic-induced injury. It's designed to incapacitate, not discriminate. Studies from the US National Institute of Justice show it's effective for restraint but inconsistent in outcome. A separate clinical review in the Hong Kong Medical Journal records cases of corneal damage, chemical pneumonia, and cardiac arrest. The takeaway is simple. It's powerful, it's unpredictable, and it's illegal for a reason. But that reason rarely comforts someone walking home alone at midnight. Every improvised defense ends the same way, with consequences. Best case, someone's eyes sting, tempers flare, both walk away shaken. Worse, burns, hospitalization, or a criminal record that lasts longer than the bruise. Police officers recall incidents where both people ended up in A&E, one coughing blood, the other in handcuffs. Every report begins with the same line: she believed there was no other choice. But belief doesn't change the charge sheet. Courts treat chemical sprays as firearms offences, serious, not symbolic. Even keychain-sized canisters bought from overseas websites count, and penalties can reach 10 years. For many, that's unthinkable. Punishment for the instinct to survive, yet the law isn't built on instinct. It's built on prevention. The trouble is, prevention feels abstract when danger feels close. Across the country, the same routine plays out every night. A woman leaves a bar, pretends to call someone as she walks. A nurse finishes the late shift, waits for the last bus under CCTV. A delivery driver parks 2 streets away and keeps the engine running. Fear isn't loud. It hums underneath daily life, the kind of fear that doesn't cause panic but planning. The government's advice remains firm. Call 999, use personal alarms, travel in groups. But alarms don't stop hands. Groups thin out after midnight. And police, when they arrive, can only react to what's already happened. When protection feels out of reach, people make their own chemistry sets of deterrence. Some call it empowerment, others call it desperation. Either way, it's a symptom, a quiet rebellion against the feeling of being unprotected in public space. Every can that rattles in a pocket says the same thing. I don't believe help will come fast enough. That's not criminal intent. That's a cry for reassurance. British law defines self-defense as reasonable force in the circumstances. But fear doesn't measure force, it measures distance between you and danger. The moment someone feels threatened, adrenaline takes command. Reasonable becomes relative. Legally, you can use any object around you, a bag, a key, a torch, if it wasn't carried as a weapon. But once an item is declared or intended for defense, it crosses the line from tool to weapon. Intent is everything. A deodorant in your gym bag is fine. A deodorant you bought for protection could land you in court. This distinction confuses the public because it feels moral, not practical. What's the difference between fear and preparation? Between caution and crime? That question has no easy answer, but thousands live inside it every day. Online petitions call for a review of personal safety laws. Campaigners argue for regulated citizen sprays with lower concentrations. Opponents warn that legalizing any irritant opens the door to abuse, escalation, and accidental harm. So for now, the boundary stands. And on either side of it, fear and legality, the public walks a narrow path. The law is clear. The fear is louder. Across Britain, the same sound echoes every night. The soft rattle of can in a pocket, the quiet rehearsal of what-if scenarios. People don't want to fight back. They just want to feel that someone somewhere is on their side. Until safety feels certain, until trust is rebuilt, the improvisations will continue. In handbags, in glove compartments, in late-night walks where the streetlights flicker. This is the chemical line, the invisible boundary between self-preservation and prohibition, between law and fear, between what people are told to do and what they feel they must do to survive. If you ever feel unsafe, there are places to turn. Contact Victim Support UK for advice and help. Call 101 for non-emergencies and 999 if you're in immediate danger. Protection should never have to be improvised. But until it isn't, Britain will keep living on the edge of the chemical line.